Kamusta ka na? Ayos ka lang ba? Happy ka ba? O sad pa rin ba? Kaya't halika na, sumama ka na sa pinag-group na at iba pa. Bata matanda, biyuda at biyuda, may asawa man o kaya'y wala. Sama-sama tayo'y maglakbay, dito ka na, di ka na mag-iisa. Bebop na tayo, bebop na. Let us be hip and let us up, tara sa munting tahanan, tahanan ni Kristo.
For some people, especially for some families, June is always related as a wedding month. Kaya nga may mga nagpapalista na gusto nilang magpakasal in this month of June. And indeed, our readings of today is indeed very exciting in the sense that a lot of young people, even couples, would always take our first reading as their reading during their wedding mass, because it speaks about the prayer that Tobiah and Sarah recited before the Lord when they were married and when they were united together on their honeymoon day. And this is indeed a wonderful, cute prayer in the sense that it manifests to us the real meaning of marriage and at the same time, in general, what it really means to love God and to love our neighbor. Because in the first reading, we have seen here the wonderful example that when people come together to get married, most of the time, people would only remain on one side of their love. And that is, they are attracted to each other, they want to be faithful to each other, they want always to have their own children and their families. And that is one side of the coin. But the other side, which our readings would like to remind couples, and not only couples, but even each and every one of us, that this love is not only something human, but rather it also comes from heaven. That married love is always a vocation. It's a calling from God. It's a mission that God gives to a couple in order that they may also promote the love of God to other people. Thus, the prayer that Tobiah and Sarah made on their wedding night somehow depicts this wonderful balance, that they realize and they really recognize that the love that they have for each other is not just merely human love or erotic love, but rather they know it is a love that God has given to each and every one of them, that this love was planted in their hearts, so much so that they recognize the goodness and the kindness of God, and they also pleaded God to make them successful also in their mission as parents and future family members. Thus, we have seen in the story that even though Sarah lost her 7 husbands, because of the devil that inflicted her honeymoon night, somehow here in Tobiah and Sarah, nothing evil happened. Because here finally Sarah came to realize that the love that they have ratified in the marriage rite, and then later on they have consummated on their honeymoon night, is always an act of God. That these acts are sacred for a couple, so much so that we would always say that marriage is always valid and complete when it is ratified and consummated always in the love of God. And for this, they were able to fulfill their vows, they were able to fulfill their family life, because they created that wonderful balance, that God is part of their lives, that it is not just a simple human love. And that is also what the Lord is also telling us in our gospel, wherein he was asked which was the greatest commandment, because during the time of Jesus, they already had a lot of commandments to follow after the interpretations made by the Pharisees and the scribes from the 10 commandments that Moses gave them. So from the 10 commandments, it multiplied to more than 600 commandments that they have to follow, either positively or negatively. Positively, what they are doing, and negatively, what they should not be doing. And all of this, they got already confused what is really the priority among the 600 plus commandments. And of course, Jesus told this particular scribe who asked him that question that there's something just basic about these commandments. That the bottom line why God gave these commandments to Moses, why he made this covenant with his people, is basically because of love. But that love has again also to be balanced. And Jesus quoted from the two books of Moses, first of all from the book of Deuteronomy, that they have to really have to love that God who has created them. He quoted them the Shema Israel, Hear, O Israel, you shall only have your Lord as God alone, etc. And that was the first priority of their command. And then the second, he quoted from the book of Leviticus, that is from the writings of the priest of the temple, that it's not only loving God, but loving God also means loving your brothers and your sisters. And it is a balance wherein if you really love your brother and your sister, you should also have that love for God. So the bottom line here of our readings would like to tell us, we ask ourselves, how do we really love in our lives? Do we really love God alone, or do we really love only our brothers and sisters alone? But the challenge is, we have to love really a balance between God and our brothers and sisters. That's why, speaking of this marriage love, a lot of times whenever I would interview couples who would have their children baptized, if not 100% that I have interviewed here in our parish for the past years, a good number of them are not married in church. Most of them would just make a union among themselves, they beget children, and that's it. Pabinyag mo, tapos na. And I always tell them, you have to level up. You have to balance your love. Not just a love for your children, that you want them to be baptized, you want them to become children of God, you want them always to be in the grace of God, but rather, always have that balance also about yourselves. Sapagkat you also as parents, fathers, and mothers of your families, you also have a body and a soul to be saved. You also have the grace of God within you, working in you. So try to work with that grace. It's not enough that you just live in together, because living in is a grievous sin. Kaya nga I always give them that option. Now, in order that you may be absolved from your sins, or at the same time you may receive communion again, it's either we schedule your marriage date. We arrange your marriage here in our church, and simply our marriage here is simple lang. Sabi ko, I was even telling them as parishioners, libre ang kasal dito. We just simply need 5 people for you to get married. That is the 2 of you getting married, a pair of sponsors, yung isang lalaki, babae, and the priest who will be presiding over your marriage rite. 5 tao lang ang kailangan. Ano pa bang problema doon? Libre na nga yun. And after that, whatever you do after that, yung mga reception nyo, kahit na simple lang. Because we also had cases here, I was telling them that after that simple celebration with the Eucharistic and liturgical celebration of marriage, may dito nag-order lang sila ng pagkain, they just ate here at the side of their church. May isa pa nga, nagyakad lang, kumain lang kami sa Maxes and so on. Yun lang, with the immediate family. So what else do you ask for? Because the important thing here is to get married in the Lord. Because here I was telling them, you have to create the balance. You don't just love each other as human beings, lalaki, babae, yung anak mo, pero you have to show also if you really love God. Kasi sayang, because if you're excommunicated, anong nangyayari? You cannot receive communion, you cannot receive the absolution. And I was telling them that even after the marriage rites of those who have been regularized because of that situation, they were grateful to the church. At ano yung pinasasalamatan nila? They were grateful not because they got married in the church, pero a good number of them would tell me, Father, thank you very much, because after 7 years, 10 years, 20 years, we can now receive communion again. Kumbaga, they have that longing for the food for their soul. They have that longing for the Lord to be part of their families, and that is what real love is. Otherwise, kung puro human love lang tayo, we only look at each other na ganyan, then it's useless. Pero we have to level it up and always see that the bottom line of all our love is in God Himself.
Okay, so ang ating title po niyan ay
Level up and balance.
Level Up and Balance. Alam mo ba kung bakit level up? Level up. Sa word pa lang na level up at saka yung sa drawing ng pagmat natin, di ba may arrow. So ibig sabihin, akit na tayo. Yung arrow pa lang sino tinuturo? Kay God. Di ba? So level up towards kay Lord. Minsan sa buhay natin, akala natin okay na kami. Like kami ni John, na okay na kami nung mag-boyfriend kami, hanggang sa naisip namin na, halika maging mag-asawa tayo. Second wife po kasi ako, so meron siyang first wife at saka may pamilya din siya sa una. 15 years siyang separated bago kami nagkakilala. Hindi po ako yung may kasalanan na paano kami nag-level up? Bakit kami nag-level up? Kasi sobrang saya na po namin. Sasabihin mo na, wow, parang ang saya ng couple yan. Sa simbahan sila nagkita. Walang big deal na mga away, ganyan. So naisip namin, di ka mag-asawa na tayo? Anong nangyari? E di nagpa-civil kami. Hindi namin naisip pa na magpakasal sa simbahan dahil yung kanyang annulment, ginagawa pa. Nagdadasal kami, Lord, alam naman namin na igagrant mo sa amin yan na maa-annul, kaya magsisivil na kami. Kasi gusto ko nang magkaanak dahil may edad na rin ako noon. Dasal yun, ha? Imagine mo, dasal yun. Actually, sa edad ko yun, siguro mga 30 plus na ako, tinawag ko pa yan sa nanay ko eh. No? Nag-long distance ako sa nanay ko. Sabi ko, mapwede na ba akong magkaanak? Tawa ng tawa yung nanay. So, pag tinitignan mo, parang masama. Di ba? Nagdadasal kami, nagsisimba kami. Malapit na kami sa mga pare dahil nga parish worker na kami. Pero live-in kami. Pero at ang motive namin, magpapakasal kami sa simbahan. Pero nauna yung kasal sa civil, kasal sa west. Dito na pumapasok yung level up. Iniisip niyo ba, mag-level up pa sila, ay nakigad na sila? Of course, we're not. Di ba? Kasi hindi ko pinagkakalipan. Baka umiyak pa ako ngayon ano, sa tuwa na nag-decide kami na magpakasimbahan. Kasi po, nung una, may edad na kami. Parang di na namin iniisip yung garbo na kasal, di ba? Yung wedding gown, yung mga ganon. So, kontento na kami na ganon. Pagkatapos dalawa, magastos, no? Magastos. Oops! Tissue, wala pa naman yung luha. Ano pa lang yung TVI? Syempre pag papakasal ka, ang dami po namin kakilala. Kailangan naman hindi mo imbitahin yun. So sabi namin, kaya talaga hindi talaga namin naiisip. Sabi namin, basta nagdadasal naman tayo, nagsisimba tayo. Kaya sabi namin, kasi siguro yan yung sinasabing Espiritu Santo, no? Talagang basta talagang bigla na lang namin naisip na, mag-confess kaya tayo. Kasi wala naman kami iniisip na ibang kasalanan na kung ano, pero maisip ko lang mag-confess. Nag-confess kami sa kanya. Actually, ako sabi ko, Father, ano kami, kasal na kami sa West, pero magpapakasal kami sa simbahan kasi lang inaantay namin yung annulment ni John. Sabi niya, oo, hindi man lang niyo ako sinabihan kasi kaklose namin siya. Isang pari lang yung sinabihan namin noon. No, tapos nasuway din namin kasi sabi, it's okay, pero huwag kayong mag-West mag-asawa. Pero hindi namin sinunod. Pagkatapos, confess kami naman sa kanya, sabi niya, nako, hindi tama yung ginagawa niyo. Yung mga intentions, sinabi ko lahat, ganyan yun nga yung nagsiserve kami, sabi niya, nagsiserve kayo pagkatapos hindi kayo kasal. Anong example kayo sa mga tao, sa mga kanya. So ngayon, in short, pinusigit talaga namin. No? Medyo naglayo kami ng konti sa simbahan kasi pinursu namin, nung nakuha na namin, kinuha namin magkakasal sa amin, yung nag-confess namin, tuwang-tuwa talaga siya. No, kaya tayo, kunyari, magkaroon tayo ng ganitong experience, nag-confess ka, imbis na sabihin ng pare sa'yo, hindi siya maamo, no? Kasi feel na feel niya si Lloyd sa loob. Siyempre, human tayo No, hindi naman natin pwedeng magaya masyado yung si God kahit gano'ng kaka-sinner, gano'ng tingin pa rin niya parang ang amo-amo tayong tao. Kaya yung emotions natin, parang sa mga anak natin, minsan ayaw natin magalit dahil tao tayo, nag-uuna yung, bakit? Nagalit na gano'n, ano. So, huwag tayong sumama ang loob, nag-confess tayo. At yung pare, parang nagnega naman doon. Kasi talaga namang mali. Tanggapin natin yun. And ang isipin nyo, yung pagpunta lang ninyo sa confession to say that, Kahit anong sabihin ng pari sa inyo, si God ang nasa isip ninyo at tuwang-tuwa siya at lumapit kayo. Nag-humble down kayo na parang inaamin niyo na nagkasala ka. So, at dahil doon, you don't stop from there. You level up. Pag sinabing level up, okay na ako, nag-confess na ako. Pero hindi pa yung tapos. May araw eh. Akit ka. So, very star. O, nagka-star points ka na kasi nag-isip ka na kung anong dapat gawin. So, nag-level up ka na. Gagawa ka na ngayon ng paraan, paano kaya ba kami makakasal sa simbahan? So, nandito po yung sinasabi ni Father Cris sa inyo. Kausapin niyo po kami. Kasi minsan, alam namin, may mga times na talagang hindi pwede pag-usapan po natin yan. Pero yung mga tungkol sa mga gastusin, ganyan, kung walang problema talaga yan. So, gawin niyo po yung ginawa namin. Eh, ako po yung gown po nandiyan sa taas. Hiram lang po yun, no? Pang-pictorial lang para makita ng mga anak namin na nagpakasal kami sa simbahan. So, yan po yung storya.
Wow! Punta tayo sa balance. Balance, that means yung love mo sa kapwa, you will now have to make it balance dahil it's not only loving your neighbor, but love God. Yun ang pinakauna eh. Pero madalas ngayon, mahal ko naman yung asawa ko eh. Kahit na hindi kami kasal, talagang mahal na mahal ko yan. But when you love your family and your marriage, kailangan talagang kumpletuhin mo yun. Balance, love of God and love of your neighbor. Nung kayo ay nag-decide or tinawag kayo ng Diyos, it is a vocation to live a married life. So, ano ang papangako ninyo sa isa't isa when you get married? So, apat yun. Una, papangako mo na mamahalin kita habang buhay. And ikalawa, mamahalin kita habang buhay kahit na ikaw ay magbago, hindi pa rin kita papalitan. Hindi kita isusole sa nanay mo. And then ikatlo, this is where you think more of your partner and your family. The good of your partner and your family. So ang tawag dyan, selfless. Kalimutan mo na ang sarili mo. Selfless na yun, that means you are willing to offer your life. Kasama na dyan, ibig sabihin, your independence, your rights, your freedom, lahat yon kasama na yon. Pagka kayo nagpakasal, the first or utos sa inyo ng Diyos ay magparami. So that means you must be open to life. Every time God gives you a new child, tanggapin ninyo yan ng may kagalakan. Ibig sabihin, kung nagkamali man, still, you put your trust in God. Na kung halimbawa sinabi nyo, ay naku na aksidente, meron na naman tayong bagong anak. Trust God that God will help you.
Yes.
Ang pinakamahirap dun sa apat na yun, napakahirap kasing panindigan because human are weak. Talagang marupok ang tao. And the devil is always there to tempt us. Hindi siya titigil hanggat hindi masira ang pangarap natin sa pamilya. Yun ang pinakamahirap na dadaanan ng mag-asawa. Si God naman, hindi niya tayo pwedeng pabayaan. God will always be there with the graces that we need para malampasan natin lahat ng pagsubok na ginagawa ng demonyo. Ano yung graces na yun? That's sanctifying grace. Sanctifying grace, ibig sabihin, the grace that will make us holy. Selflessness natin, make possible, magiging posible yan because God is giving us that divine grace. Yung ating pride, isa pa rin yan. Yan ang pinakamabigat na problema ng mag-asawa, the pride. Hihingin natin ang tulong ni God. And then after that sanctifying grace, meron pa rin siyang pangumpleto. He will still assist us. Yan ang tinatawag na divine assistance. Yung provision sa atin. Minsan talaga nauuna yung pangsarili natin na pangarap, ambisyon na very worldly. Yun lang ang plano ng Diyos. No? We have a promise, but we cannot do it easily because of ourselves, yung kahinaan natin, and yung patuloy na panunukso ng demonyo. But God will always be with us, journeying in our family life para makayanan natin yung mga ginagawa ng demonyo. Ano ang gusto kong sabihin sa inyo? Minsan, sabi ng iba, kami naman nakita mo naman nalampasan namin. Yes, kaya malampasan. But if you follow the plan of God, mas masaya na nalalampasan ninyo yan. So, that is the plan of God na sana ay maunawaan natin. Kung halimbawang naunawaan natin yan, we will always go to God to get that help. Kasi kung hindi natin naunawaan yan, we will do it by our own power. Yun ang mahirap.
Kung meron pong problemang iba, lapitan niyo lang po kami. Pwede niyo kaming pahanap sa simbahan, okay, Father, para makapag-usapan natin kung ano ba talaga ang problema, what hinders you not to get married in church.
Na-realize namin sa aming meeting, mga umitan, sinabi na ni Father Cris, umpisahan na yan, massive campaign, because we want many families, kung hindi lahat, ay makinabang dito sa plano ng Diyos. We want them to all be sa kanilang journey. Huwag kayo mag-alala. Because yung kumpanya nga, binigyan na ni Father ng direction na puntahan na ninyo lahat yung mga nandyan so that
Yes.
sila ay makinabang sa sakramento ng kasal. Yung BEC leaders natin, so binigyan na ni Father ng direction sila, no? Go!
And I'm sure na with God's grace, at siguro ngayon kung nakikinig kayo at kumakatok si God sa inyo, eto na yun. Okay? So we'll see you again next week. Bye!